Hey everybody, welcome back. A lot to go over, short time to do it. So we obviously have broken above this control bar. We have been talking about the breadth getting better, and it is very clear that the breadth is definitely getting better. And we can see the higher high, and then we can see the obvious push over today. The question is, does it matter the volume? I think you have to consider that you're going to have a lot of gap up and gaps down solely based upon earnings this week. We're going to see a lot of that, and we're going to carry it. But let's start with just the basics. So if we just look at the day in and of itself, we open on Sunday and we gap up. And now after that gap up, that 1 minute bar, and I think this is important. After that 1 minute bar until about 10 o'clock, you were in that range. So Sunday night, you never really got anywhere. And then around 10 o'clock, you started trying, and then you start to flip. And I think that this is really where the metal meets the road. So we can say 10 o'clock, we tried, and then we would come into this and say, all right, well, what happened here at 11:30? Because we tried again at 11:30 and we flipped it. And then we come into that 1 o'clock and then we tried again. So what happened during that period of time? And what happened was some data points. So in other words, the Dallas Fed manufacturing is really all we have to hang our hats on. So we came in at negative 0.5 versus previous negative 8.7. Now this was obviously better than expected, and then that does help drive the market up a little higher. And that is something, of course, that we want to see. Of course it is. We want to see the economy getting a little bit better, especially on the manufacturing side. Now, in regards to the auctions, again, you have your bond auctions. And we have the 2-year coming in better than expected from the previous auction. Same here in the 6-month, and this is at 11:30. And 1 o'clock, you have the 3-month, and you have the 5-year note. This is all we have to go off of. So what we're seeing is we're seeing them buy bonds. That buying of bonds is helping with our equity risk premium. We'll go over that in Saturday's video. We'll do the equity risk premium then, because that's going to be more definitive after FOMC, which is this week. So make sure you subscribe, because that's really important what's going on there, because you are seeing a divergence right now. A couple of people in the community already picked up on it. So really important stuff here. That leads us to today's action. And so what we're doing again is just studying today's action, saying, okay, well, did that really move us? I think it did. I think it put in that bottom right here in the market. And then from there, we lifted. 1 p.m. came back, retested. And then from there, we continued to grind higher. Into the end of the day, that last half hour, they are just net buyers of the market. Today's behavior was super interesting. And so what I like to do is study the behavior of the market. In other words, if we take a look off the open, it was just trigger after trigger. Take a look at this. And you can just see that it was just Wick City on trying to get people in and out, take out their stops, and move forward, more so than normal. So if you take a look at this action in the morning versus how specific and tight we were later in the day, it was pretty specific. And then you had a direction, and that direction was up. And I do like to look at stuff like this, and I'll show you what I mean by this. So if I take today, for example, and here's the 5, and what we'll do is we'll go from the cash open. And actually, you know what? We'll make it even simpler. We'll do the SPX so that we can follow along. We'll get rid of a super happy cloud. And then what we'll do is we'll just take a minute and we'll just look at the cash open and we'll look at the 5. And then you'll see that, okay, that was the issue. How long were we in that 5-minute bar for? And when did we break out of that 5-minute bar? The cash broke out at 11:30 and we never looked back. We retested that level from the 1 o'clock area and the 11:30 for the bond auction, and we never looked back, and then we rallied. All right, so on the day, if we look at the market, and I can't stress how important this is. You're up 21 basis points on from the bottom of that market, from that 5-minute bar to here, all right, till about 3:15. And on the day, you're up 42 basis points. So 50% of today's move was done in the last half hour. That's telling you that you have institutional support, that they're coming into the market. If you look at the NDX, it was a little stronger and it grinded all day. But the SPX, this is what we dealt with. And I can't stress how important it is for us to understand this. I truly cannot stress how important it is for us to get this and for us to pay attention to it. Now, what does this get us? It gets us the understanding that institutions are stepping up and retail's skittish. And to be candid, I was skittish this morning. If we take a look at AMD, off the open, we just have the pump and dump. They smash us, right? Get us all our hopes and dreams. And I'm going to just say this. If you don't have access to overnight right now, with this kind of market, overnight, you're really missing out. People were able to get out of AMD last night around 262. You come into this morning and now you're facing something like this at 253. There's an edge in the overnight trading. So you might want to look into your system and see if that you have it. Just an idea, just something for you guys to think about. So it does give you edge. And now if you take a look at today, you're down at 249 at one point today. You're back to 260 later in the day. When did the buying kick in? Once again, they get a supercomputer deal with the government for $1 billion. Where do you see this move? But wait, there's more. And this is the kind of behavior I'm seeing, and I'm not understanding the behavior at all. 1 minute bar takes everybody out from 52 to 58, and then you're going to retrace the whole bar, and then you're going to come back later in the day and take out the highs. Like it literally makes no sense to me, and it's just got to be the algorithmic traders taking you right into the open, and then they're net sellers. And then from there, you just retrace and come back. But it makes zero sense to me. But there it is. And this is what we're dealing with right now. So the next question really becomes, how do we take advantage of that? During this week, until you start having the buybacks kick in, because you're in that blackout period, you have to realize that this kind of shenanigans, and that's how you pronounce that, that's going to be what you're dealing with right now. All right. Well, if nothing else, I made you laugh. So please consider that when you're trading this week. But what are we saying? Google, look at Google after hours. Why is it up so much? Well, they're working really hard on this thing with quantum, and they're getting their feet in quantum. And here's the big thing about this. And I want to be really clear about this that I'm about to go over. Because if you take one thing from this, I've been doing this for a while, guys. I've been doing this for about 27 years. And so what companies will do, I'm trying to figure out the way to say this without sounding like I have a tinfoil hat on. What companies will do, if the FTC is going after them or any agency is going after them, they'll be like, oh, well, competition's really hard. It's really tough out there. And they will sandbag their quarters. If you think that they won't do it, you're delusional. No, tough. Things are really hard for us right now. And we're trying to make a go of it. And, they're coming out and they're hitting their numbers, but they're not showing you what they're really doing because they're, quote, sandbagging. And then the FTC comes out and says, we know we spent 5 years and we went after you. Please don't do that thing that you're doing. Got it. We won't do that thing anymore. Right? That was the remedy. From there at 225, you're at 270. You haven't had earnings yet. What did they just come out with today? And this is what people need to understand because they're going to see it tomorrow morning for 8:30 earnings. And so you're going to want to listen to this conference call. Google's turning a plant back on to get more nuclear power. They're not turning on a power plant that's been off or commissioning a power plant to say, we'll take all the power that you can get if things are going bad, if they're going to cut back on CapEx. Right? So this is going to be their first quarter that they don't have to worry about what anybody thinks, that they don't have the FTC looking over their shoulder anymore because the remedy's out there. This is super important to understand. And I'd watch this quarter this week. Now, NEE, this was mind-blowing to me that this is all that the stock moved on this breakout. It's up a little bit after hours as it starts to hit the tape, but we got in this thing immediately as soon as it hit. So if you watch the volume here, you can see the spikes and you can start seeing how it just starts kicking in. As soon as that hit, and I got literally, like you could see it like picking up, I got in like around here and I couldn't believe that it actually gave me the opportunity, 85, to buy more on this. So they're going to turn on a power plant that's been offline. Do you think that's going to add revenue to them? Because they're probably not going to turn it on if they don't make money from it, right? I mean, sometimes guys, like it's not really that hard to overthink this stuff, right? Just think about what they're actually doing. They're turning on a power plant where they're going to go and make more money to go and sell more power to people that need the power. Okay, this sounds pretty reasonable. Stock's at all-time highs, I believe, tonight. I think that's an all-time high. No, not yet. We're getting darn close, though. And tomorrow, when they map this thing out, it's going to be it sure is going to be interesting to hear what they have to say. So it's 90. I think 90.40 might be it. Is that it? Nope. No, it's not. No, there it is. 93.65. So there's your key levels. But I wouldn't sleep on this. To me, this is no different than what you saw with CEG. When CEG came out with that news and then the stock ran up, you had earnings, and it's been just, it's a bumpy ride, man, buying these things. But if you really look at where you're up 125 points from there. VST is the same exact thing. They came out with that news and then the stock never looked back. And you've got a bunch of names like this, right? So I don't know. I think there's something to it. And I think you should be paying attention to that tomorrow. I think that's the biggest news of the day for us as tech traders. The biggest news, hands down, in the world was what happened in Argentina. Now, you'll see the volume kick in here. You have 3 million that traded today on this. And if you really go back and take a look at this, I want to be really clear about this. You have not had 3 million even when he got in. Even when he got in, we didn't have 3 million. Why? Everybody thought that this was dead. Everybody thought that he didn't have a chance in the midterms with his party. And his party not only stayed, his party basically swept. They crushed. They absolutely crushed. So you have this bar and you're kind of in the middle here. Do you start seeing some selling? Do we come back down? I don't have a clue, but if I don't go through these 4 names with you that I'm looking at right now in some of these earnings, I'm doing you a disservice. So we've played these in the past, back in the day. We did this in 23. This was that trade. And again, if you're trying to get into the community, please be on the lookout for an invite. It is coming. But if you go back, this was all around November. Same time, all these names, $12, $13. And then they had this huge rip, and then the surplus somehow turned to negative, and then you just had people worried about whether or not he was going to get in or not, or his midterms, I should say it that way. That's a more proper way to say it, to see if he was going to have a cabinet. I know more about Argentinian politics now than I care to mention. So you're getting the shooting star, which is great. Come on back down. But now his policies are going to be implemented. I think the big beneficiaries are energy and are the banks. Now, if they're going to smoke the banks on this, that's fine. I hope they smoke them, because the bottom line is all those bonds that are now backed by US dollars and everything else are on the books in these banks. So, I mean, go to town. I don't know what else to say. Sell them off. I mean, just let it all burn if it's going to. I don't know what to say about it, because it's such an interesting trade to think that this is the same thing that you were dealing with a week ago. It's not. It's a completely different trade. So if they want to sell them, go to town, man. It's going to be it's definitely going to be a bonanza for the people that understand this. If you have debt out there and that debt all of a sudden is backed by the US, which it wasn't before, you're now tied to the US dollar. I think it's like $20 billion of their debt is now tied, and that's on their books. Who do you think's buying their debt? Same people that buys our debt, right? So you have U.S. Treasuries. Who buys them? Our banks. So the regional. So if you think about it from that standpoint, and now you're not tied to the peso, you're tied to the dollar. So I actually think that the banks are the place to really look. Now, hopefully they get smoked on this. I haven't really done much. I did buy Argentina, and I already kicked it, because to me it was just absolutely insane how much that it was up in a day. I mean, it's ridiculous how much this moved. No one had this predicted. Nobody had this out there. And this, to me, is the really big move. Now, I do see some things after hours as well that I think are super interesting. These guys are doing it right, and I want to go through it and give them props. So this ETHZ is actually trading under NAV. So for you guys that are always yelling at me about, oh, he hates BMNR because he doesn't understand it. No, I get it. You're paying for a piece of paper. That piece of paper is worth more than you going out and buying Ethereum and Bitcoin yourself. That, I get it. You have to understand where the NAVs are. Like you can do exceptionally well with these trades. So when GBTC was back here and nobody wanted to buy it, and it was trading at 60, 70 cents on the dollar, and nobody wanted to go near it, that's when you want to buy this stuff. When it's trading at a discount to the underlying asset that it's trading. That is this ETHZ. So much that you know what they're doing? They're actually selling Ethereum and buying their own stock back just to get it back to the NAV. You want to look at this in details. Now, I've gone out there a couple times and looked at this, and the guys in the crypto room actually brought it to my attention. This is not my idea, but as soon as I saw it and I saw what they were doing, so they're selling their ETH holding and buying their own shares back because they're at a discount to NAV. I don't see anybody else that's in this group doing it. And if you go and look at the shareholders, this might be why some of those guys like Citadel are taking positions in this one. So it's up at 23. The way I calculated it, and you guys please comment on this if you have a website or something that I should go to, because the share counts on these things change drastically. But the way I'm calculating this is somewhere between 24, 25 is what this thing goes to. So if you see volatility in it tomorrow, understand that they're going to pin this to NAV constantly. So if this keeps trading up, it's going to trade at NAV. That's going to make this very lucrative as the one that actually does it, as the one that wants to hold. And that's going to make more sense to me to buy versus looking at paying BMNR. I don't understand why I would pay more for Bitcoin than Bitcoin. It makes no sense to me just because I want to be buddies with Tom Lay. It just makes zero sense. SBET, same exact thing. Why would I do that? This one makes a lot of sense. And for those guys that like these little puzzles and looking into the NAVs, I would pay attention to this. I think that this is absolutely fascinating and worth your time to look at. I can't stress it enough. Now, if we look at earnings after hours, CLS absolutely crushed and raised for the quarter and the year. So it's a full-on crush, hands down, up $30. Disclosure, I have a position in this. Let's take a look after hours so you can see what's going on. You have the rip and you don't have the dip. So you just might want to just see how this plays out. But if we take a look at that, that's the 61.8 and there's the 5. So I get to the 61.8 retracement and I stop. If we do something simplistic, like just drop the VWAP down here and we see that, you can see where we're at, right? So, and then if we dropped in something like the volume profile right there, you can see that as well. So you can see where the low end of the volume profile is and the point of control. So that's a big area right there, that 330. And you get over that tonight, which I think you might. I haven't listened to this conference call, but you might get over that, and that might be something that's worth paying attention to. So we'll have to keep that in mind. I do think it's worth looking at some of these after hours because they're not all roses. Like RMBS was an absolute dumpster fire. They missed. I don't believe the guide was that great. I tend to look at shorting these, to be candid, after the conference calls, but I haven't gotten to this one yet and I haven't listened to it. But this was not a great call. And based upon that, you're seeing some of these names sell down after hours. You have a real battle going on after hours too, with two names that were larger cap. I definitely want you to wrap your noodle around. This thing with Tesla and the way it dropped, the chairman's out saying that if you don't sign his pay agreement, he might leave. Okay, then he leaves. So like his entire net worth's tied to the stock. So I mean, it's a big bluff, but I don't know. I think I have a real issue with this. I'm not going to get into my issues with it, but you went from 60 to down to 47 and you went fast. You did kind of pin back towards the end of the day. But from my standpoint in looking at this, I thought this was somewhat troublesome. And this might be an overhang until they figure out what they're going to do with this pay package. You know, it's interesting because the shareholders can vote for whatever they want to. I believe in that. But I do find it fascinating that this is the thing that we're dealing with on a company that came out year over year is down 31% on their earnings. And I can't imagine that any institutional like ISS or any of those guys are going to come out and say, yeah, but vote for this pay package. I just don't see it. So I don't know. This might be an overhang. That said, I mean, the rip down, the way you held the new closing high, that you're in this kind of wonky flag, you still can't get through the 471 and you're still up in this stuff. I mean, it's really hard to be negative about that overall from a daily perspective, but it's definitely there. Coin was one that I bought today and I got out of it at the end of the day. I have real issue with this. And you're coming into earnings. So we rally up, but look at the end of the day at 2:30 on, dentist's favorite time. You have straight selling, like straight selling. As soon as we went from retail to institutional, which flips around that 2:30 time frame, dentist's favorite time of day, get it, 2:30. And you can see right there, right? You're down 3.25%. It was 12 points unanswered. Just get me out at any price. And that's exactly what happened there. So I do think that that's important. And as far as the market as a whole, we really saw the big dogs lift. You saw a lot of the nuclear names push as well, but it was really like big dog central today. Some of the smaller names I could go through, and there's some of the space names that I think are pretty interesting, but I would start tomorrow and I'd watch this knee and I'd watch that conference call. Guys, you have so much going on this week. I could spend an hour here going through like Meta and Microsoft and all these names. But the one that's really sticking out to me that's finally got a chance to shine here, I think is Google. So see how this all plays out. That is it.